Be prepared, something unusual is building around the full moon of July 29th and 30th, and many people will feel it before they understand what is happening. You may already be noticing that ordinary conversations are becoming heavier than usual. A person you have not thought about for months may suddenly return to your mind. Someone who normally has very little effect on you may leave you irritated, exhausted, or strangely emotional after only a few minutes together. You may walk into a room feeling perfectly fine and leave carrying tension that does not even feel like your own. These experiences can be easy to dismiss as stress, lack of sleep, or a difficult week, but during this particular full moon window, physical contact may amplify everything. That is why you need to be careful who you touch on July 29th and 30th. Before anyone misunderstands the warning, this is not about becoming afraid of every handshake, avoiding your family, or treating people as though they are dangerous. It is about understanding that physical contact creates a moment of openness. A hug, a hand placed on your shoulder, a long handshake, sitting pressed closely against someone, or allowing a distressed person to hold onto you can affect your emotional state far more strongly when your boundaries are already sensitive. Most of the time, you move through these interactions without noticing anything. During this full moon, however, what normally remains beneath the surface may become obvious. You could touch someone who is carrying deep anger and suddenly feel agitated for no clear reason. You could hug a person who is emotionally attached to you and spend the rest of the night thinking about them, even though you had already made peace with the situation. You could comfort someone who has been living in constant fear and later find yourself questioning decisions you felt confident about only hours earlier. The issue is not that another person has magical control over you. The issue is that physical closeness can lower the distance between two emotional states, especially when one person is highly receptive and the other is overwhelmed. The full moon acts like a spotlight. It does not always create the emotion, but it reveals what was already there. It brings hidden resentment closer to the surface, intensifies attraction, exposes jealousy, and makes unresolved tension harder to ignore. That is why people often behave differently around a full moon without consciously connecting their behavior to the atmosphere around them. Some become more expressive, others become impatient, impulsive, or unusually nostalgic. The person who has been holding back a confession may suddenly want to speak. The person who has been pretending not to care may begin checking your page again. Someone who disappeared may return with a message that sounds urgent, even though they were silent when you needed clarity. Now imagine that emotional intensity moving through physical contact. A message can be ignored, a conversation can be ended. But touch often bypasses the part of the mind that wants to remain logical. It creates familiarity before trust has been restored. It can reopen attachment before the reasons for separation have been resolved. It can make a temporary emotional moment feel like proof that the entire relationship has changed. This is one of the greatest risks during July 29th and 30th. Someone may reach for you physically before they have earned their way back into your life emotionally. That hug may feel like closure, but it can restart the confusion. That touch may feel reassuring, but it can weaken a boundary you spent months building. That moment of closeness may convince you that the connection is still meant to continue, even though nothing practical has changed. This is why the warning is not simply about energy, it is also about judgment. When the emotional atmosphere is intense, people often make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. They reconcile too quickly, reveal private information, make promises, become physically intimate, or give another person access that would have required much more consideration on an ordinary day. The full moon does not remove free will, but it can make urgency feel like truth. It can make a familiar person feel safer than they really are. It can make loneliness speak louder than discernment. During these 2 days, the most dangerous contact may come from someone you already know. A stranger has limited access to your emotional history. A former partner, family member, close friend, or person with whom you share unresolved tension already knows where your boundaries become weak. They know how to make a conversation feel familiar. They know which memories will soften your resistance. They know how to touch your hand, embrace you, or stand close enough to bring back an entire emotional chapter without discussing any of the reasons it ended. That does not automatically mean they are intentionally manipulating you. They may also be confused. They may genuinely miss you. They may feel the same emotional pull and mistake it for a final answer. Two people can be sincere and still make a harmful decision together. That is why sincerity is not the only question you should ask during this full moon. You must also ask whether the situation is stable. Has the person actually changed, or is the atmosphere simply making the connection feel powerful again? Have the original problems been addressed, or are both of you temporarily avoiding them? Is the contact leading toward clarity, or is it creating another emotional high that will disappear as soon as the intensity passes? These questions matter because July 29th and 30th may create moments that feel larger than they are. The feelings can be real while the conclusions remain inaccurate. You can genuinely care about someone and still need distance. You can feel compassion without giving them full access. You can accept an apology without immediately rebuilding the relationship. You can notice attraction without acting on it. Emotional maturity is not the absence of feeling. It is the ability to avoid turning every powerful feeling into an instruction. There is another group of people you should be especially careful around during this period, those who are carrying an emotional crisis. You may know someone who is angry about their job, terrified about money, fighting with a partner, grieving a loss, or dealing with a problem they have not told anyone about. They may appear normal at first, but the moment you get close, they begin releasing everything. They talk for an hour without asking how you are. They grip your arm while explaining the situation. They hug you tightly because they need comfort. They place their emotional weight on you because you are the person who always seems strong enough to carry it. Normally, you may listen and recover later. During this full moon, recovery could take longer. After the interaction, you may feel pressure in your chest, mental confusion, unusual tiredness, or a desire to isolate yourself. You may become impatient with people who did nothing wrong. You may lose interest in work you were excited about earlier in the day. You may even begin worrying about problems that are not currently happening in your own life. When this occurs, do not immediately assume that something terrible is coming. First, ask what changed in the hours before the feeling began. Who were you with? What were they discussing? Was there physical contact? Did the emotional shift happen before or after the conversation? Many people never investigate this connection. They accept the new mood as their own and then begin making decisions from it. This is how an emotion that began in someone else's crisis can influence your evening, your relationships, and sometimes your entire direction. You comfort a friend who is convinced that no relationship can be trusted, and later you begin questioning your own partner. You speak with a relative who believes every financial opportunity will fail, and suddenly the plan you carefully researched appears reckless. You spend time with someone who is deeply resentful, and by the end of the night you are remembering every person who ever disappointed you. Nothing external has changed. Your focus has changed. The full moon magnifies whatever receives attention. When another person places a powerful emotion into the center of your awareness, your mind may continue feeding it long after the conversation ends. Physical contact can make the experience more memorable because the body registers closeness differently from ordinary words. That is why boundaries during these 2 days must involve more than simply avoiding arguments. You need to be selective about whose emotional world you enter. There is also a third kind of contact that can create problems during this window, and it is the one many people will not expect: affectionate contact with someone who secretly resents you. Jealousy does not always look hostile. Sometimes it smiles, congratulates you, and asks detailed questions about what you are planning. It may hug you while quietly comparing your progress to its own. It may tell you to be careful, not because there is a real danger, but because your confidence makes the other person uncomfortable. It may disguise discouragement as practical advice. During a normal week, you might notice the strange tone and continue with your day. Around this full moon, however, the interaction can stay with you. You begin replaying what they said. Their doubt enters your decision-making. You start looking for problems in an opportunity that excited you. You reduce your expectations so you will not appear overconfident. Without realizing it, you begin viewing your future through the fear of someone who does not want you to move too far ahead. This is one reason you should not announce every plan during July 29th and 30th. The urge to reveal what is happening may become strong. You may want confirmation. You may feel that telling someone will make the opportunity more real. You may want to celebrate early because you have waited a long time for movement, but unfinished plans are easily influenced. Once multiple people know what you are doing, their expectations enter the process. One person becomes excited, another becomes doubtful, and a third starts telling you exactly what they would do. Soon, your original direction becomes buried beneath other people's opinions. Protecting something does not mean you are ashamed of it. It means you understand that early growth requires focus. Think about the last time you had a powerful idea and told too many people before taking action. At first, speaking about it felt exciting. Then the questions began: how will you pay for it? What if it fails? Who else is doing it? Are you experienced enough? Do you really have time? Each question may have sounded reasonable, but together they changed your emotional relationship with the idea. You began defending it instead of developing it. Eventually, the energy that should have gone into action was spent explaining why the idea deserved to exist. The July full moon may intensify this pattern. You could feel unusually certain in the morning, meet one doubtful person in the afternoon, and spend the evening reconsidering everything. That does not mean their opinion is correct. It means you allowed someone else into the decision before the structure was strong enough to stand on its own. So what should you actually do on July 29th and 30th? First, do not panic and isolate yourself from the entire world. Fear would make you more reactive, not less. Instead, reduce unnecessary physical contact, especially with people who leave you feeling confused, guilty, pressured, or emotionally drained. You can remain polite without allowing closeness. You can greet someone without a long embrace. You can listen without becoming responsible for solving their crisis. You can support a person while keeping enough emotional distance to recognize what belongs to them. If someone asks why you seem quieter, you do not need to give a dramatic explanation. Say you are tired, focused, or taking a little space. Boundaries do not require a speech. Second, delay major emotional decisions until the intensity has passed. Do not end a relationship because of one explosive conversation. Do not restart a relationship because of one powerful reunion. Do not make a promise simply because another person is crying. Do not reveal a secret because the moment feels unusually intimate. Give yourself time to see whether the feeling remains consistent after July 30th. A decision that is truly aligned will still make sense when the atmosphere becomes calmer. Third, pay attention to the difference between your state before and after an interaction. This may be the most useful practice of the entire full moon window. Before meeting someone, take 10 seconds and identify how you feel. Are you calm, hopeful, focused, tired but stable? After the conversation, check again. You now feel anxious, angry, guilty, or unusually doubtful. If the change is dramatic, do not immediately act from the new state. Go home, take a shower, change your clothes, open a window, sit quietly without music, social media, or another person's voice filling the room. Give your nervous system time to settle. You do not need an elaborate ritual. The objective is simply to create enough separation for your natural emotional state to return. Water can be especially useful because it gives the body a clear transition. While showering or washing your hands, imagine that you are releasing the tension of the interaction rather than carrying it into the rest of your day. Whether you understand this spiritually or psychologically, the result is similar. You are telling your mind that the encounter has ended. Fourth, avoid using physical intimacy to answer emotional questions. This applies especially to people dealing with an uncertain relationship. If you do not know where you stand with someone, becoming physically close during this window may make the answer more difficult to find. The intimacy can create temporary security without providing actual commitment. For a few hours, everything feels repaired. Then the full moon passes, ordinary patterns return, and you realize the conversation you needed never happened. Ask the question before allowing the closeness. What are we doing? What has changed? What do you want after tonight? Are we rebuilding something, or are we using familiarity to avoid feeling alone? These questions may feel uncomfortable, but they protect both people from interpreting the same moment in completely different ways. One person may believe a reunion has begun. The other may believe it was a final goodbye. One may assume exclusivity. The other may see the encounter as temporary. When emotions are already heightened, unspoken expectations can create damage that lasts much longer than the full moon itself. Fifth, do not allow guilt to make you physically available. Some people use touch to avoid respecting a verbal boundary. You say you need space and they move closer. You explain that you are not ready to talk and they take your hand. You attempt to leave and they ask for one final hug. Because the gesture appears gentle, refusing can feel cruel. But if you know that physical contact will weaken your decision, you are allowed to say no. You are not required to prove kindness by abandoning your own limits. A person who genuinely respects you can tolerate a boundary. They may feel disappointed, but they will not pressure you to override your discomfort so they can feel better. Pay attention to this during July 29th and 30th. The reaction to your boundary may reveal more than the words used before it. Now let us return to the reason this full moon feels different. The emotional atmosphere around these dates is connected to exposure. Situations that have remained unclear may begin showing their real structure. A person's intentions may become easier to read. A friendship that has quietly become competitive may reveal its tension. A relationship held together by avoidance may reach a point where the central issue can no longer be ignored. At the same time, something positive may also become visible. An opportunity, a new direction, a useful connection, or a realization that you are finally ready to move beyond a pattern that controlled you for years. Exposure is not always comfortable, but it is useful. The difficulty is that people often try to escape what they see. When a truth becomes clear, they seek comfort before deciding what to do with it. They call the person who usually distracts them. They return to an old habit. They use affection, intimacy, food, spending, or constant communication to reduce the discomfort. During this full moon, the fastest form of comfort may also be the thing that prevents you from understanding what the truth is asking you to change. Imagine that you suddenly realize a person has been giving you attention only when they feel lonely. That recognition hurts. Before you can process it, they appear and embrace you. The pain disappears for a moment, so you decide your realization must have been wrong. But the embrace did not change the pattern. It only delayed your response to it. Or imagine that you finally accept that a work environment is damaging your confidence. You make a quiet decision to look for something better. Then a colleague who fears change places a reassuring hand on your shoulder and tells you not to risk what you already have. Their concern feels caring, but it may also return you to the fear you had just overcome. This is why physical contact becomes symbolically important during these dates. It represents access. Who has access to your emotions? Who has access to your attention? Who can enter your personal space and immediately change how you see yourself? The full moon may not be telling you to reject human connection. It may be showing you that closeness should be earned rather than automatically granted. Some people have been allowed into your space because they have known you for a long time, not because they currently treat you well. Some have access because you feel sorry for them. Others remain close because you are afraid setting a boundary will create conflict. July 29th and 30th may force you to examine whether familiarity has been mistaken for trust. Long history does not guarantee emotional safety. Strong chemistry does not guarantee compatibility. A powerful reunion does not guarantee a different future. An apology does not guarantee changed behavior. These distinctions become essential when feelings are intense. There may also be moments during this window when you are the emotionally charged person. Do not assume the warning only applies to what others can place on you. You may feel more vulnerable, possessive, angry, or desperate for reassurance than usual. You may want someone to hold you because you do not want to sit with what you are feeling. You may reach for a person whose boundaries you previously ignored. You may use physical closeness to seek an answer they are not ready to give. Notice this without judging yourself. Instead of immediately reaching outward, ask what the feeling actually needs. Are you lonely, or do you need that specific person? Are you frightened by a change, or is the change genuinely wrong? Are you missing the relationship, or are you missing the familiar role you had inside it? Are you seeking comfort, validation, distraction, or commitment? The answer changes what you should do next. If you need comfort, you can create a calm environment without reopening a complicated connection. If you need clarity, you can have a direct conversation. If you need commitment, physical intimacy cannot substitute for an agreement. If you are simply overwhelmed, rest may serve you better than contact. One of the strongest signs that this full moon is affecting you will be the urge to do something immediately. You may feel that waiting until tomorrow is impossible. You may want to send the message now, confront the person now, announce the decision now, or demand an answer before the night ends. Urgency creates the illusion that delay equals loss, but what is real does not usually collapse because you took one night to think. A healthy opportunity can survive a question. A sincere person can survive a boundary. A stable relationship can survive a pause. What cannot tolerate a few hours of reflection may already be relying on pressure rather than truth. During the evening of July 29th, give yourself a simple rule: no emotionally significant decision after a highly charged interaction. Wait until you have slept. Read the message again in the morning. Reconsider the promise when your body is calm. If the answer is still clear, act. If the intensity disappears, be grateful that you waited. On July 30th, the emotional consequences of the previous day may become visible. You may wake with unusual clarity. A person who seemed irresistible may suddenly appear complicated again. An argument that felt catastrophic may look manageable. You may recognize that you were carrying another person's fear. You may also notice that a decision you delayed still feels deeply correct. This second day is not only about avoiding contact, it is about reviewing what remained true after the emotional peak. Write down what changed, who affected your state most strongly, which conversation continued replaying in your mind, where did you feel pressured to abandon your own judgment, what truth became easier to see once you had distance. Do not turn this into a dramatic investigation of everyone around you. The goal is awareness, not suspicion. A person can affect you without being evil. Someone can be emotionally heavy without intending to harm you. You can care about them while recognizing that you need a healthier way of interacting. This full moon may teach you that empathy without boundaries becomes exhaustion. It may show you that forgiveness without change becomes permission. It may reveal that connection without clarity becomes confusion. Once you understand the pattern, the warning makes sense. Do not touch anyone is not a command to fear people. It is an invitation to pause before granting access during a highly emotional period. It asks you to recognize that your body, attention, and personal space are not public property. You decide who comes close when they come close, and whether the closeness supports the life you are trying to build. There is something else you should know before these 2 days end. The person you feel most drawn to may not be the person you need to approach. Sometimes the strongest pull appears around an unfinished lesson, not a future relationship. The mind returns to what lacks closure because it wants resolution. The body remembers chemistry even when the relationship was unstable. The full moon can bring those memories forward with such intensity that you assume they must have prophetic meaning. Not every return is a reunion. Sometimes a memory returns so you can see that it no longer controls you. Sometimes a person appears again so you can respond differently. Sometimes an old attraction becomes strong because you are finally ready to understand what it was teaching you. The lesson may be that you confuse unpredictability with excitement. It may be that you become attached to people who need saving because being needed feels safer than being fully known. It may be that you accept physical affection in place of emotional consistency. This full moon may expose the pattern through one final temptation. Your response is what completes the lesson. You do not need to prove your strength by placing yourself inside the same situation again. You prove it by recognizing the pattern sooner and choosing differently. If contact is unavoidable because of work, family, travel, or daily responsibilities, remain calm. You do not need to behave strangely. Keep interactions normal but notice your internal response. A brief handshake is not going to destroy your life. The real concern is prolonged, emotionally loaded contact with people who already have a strong effect on you. The warning is about discernment, not superstition. After any heavy interaction, return to your own center before moving into the next part of your day. Walk for a few minutes without your phone. Drink water, breathe slowly, write one sentence describing what you feel. Ask whether the emotion belongs to the current moment or whether someone's story activated an older fear. These simple actions prevent emotional momentum from controlling your decisions. By the night of July 30th, the atmosphere should begin shifting. What was revealed will remain, but the immediate pressure may decrease. This is the moment to choose what you will carry forward. Perhaps you will decide that a certain person can remain in your life, but with less access. Perhaps you will recognize that a relationship needs a direct conversation before any more physical intimacy. Perhaps you will stop discussing your plans with someone who always makes you doubt them. Perhaps you will understand that another person's crisis cannot become your daily responsibility. Or perhaps you will realize that the full moon did not expose a dangerous person at all. It exposed your habit of abandoning yourself whenever someone else becomes emotional. That realization can change everything, because the real protection is not avoiding every person forever. It is becoming someone who can remain present without absorbing everything, compassionate without surrendering judgment, and open without giving unrestricted access. July 29th and 30th are a test of that balance, so when someone reaches for you, pause for 1 second. Notice what your body is telling you. Do you feel safe or do you feel pressure? Do you want the contact or are you afraid of appearing rude? Is the moment grounded in mutual respect, or is one person trying to use closeness to avoid an honest conversation? Trust the answer that appears before guilt begins arguing with it. For these 48 hours, protect the quiet space in which your own truth can become clear. Limit emotionally chaotic conversations. Avoid unnecessary physical intimacy with people whose intentions remain uncertain. Do not reveal unfinished plans to those who have not earned your trust. Delay decisions made immediately after conflict, attraction, fear, or guilt. Most importantly, stop assuming that every powerful emotional experience must be acted upon. Some feelings are information, some are memories, some are temporary reactions, some belong to the person standing next to you. Wisdom is knowing the difference. This full moon is not normal because it is making access visible. You are being shown who can enter your space and leave you stronger, who enters and leaves you confused, and where you have continued allowing closeness simply because you did not know how to say no. The next 2 days may expose these patterns quickly, but what you learn can protect you far beyond July. If you have already felt unusual emotional pressure, sudden memories, exhaustion after conversations, or a strong urge to contact someone from your past, write *I protect my energy in the comments. Not because you are afraid of connection, but because you are choosing awareness before reaction. And when July 30th ends, do not forget what these 2 days showed you. Remember who respected your boundary. Remember who became angry when you needed space. Remember which interaction brought peace and which one created confusion. Remember how your body felt before your mind began explaining everything away. The full moon will pass, but the information it reveals can remain useful. You do not need to close your heart. You need to stop treating access to it as something everyone automatically deserves. Be kind, be calm, stay observant. And during July 29th and 30th, think carefully before you allow anyone to use physical closeness to influence a decision that belongs to you. Because the person who touches your hand may be offering comfort, they may also be reopening a chapter you were finally ready to close. The difference will not be found in the intensity of the moment. It will be found in what remains true after the moment is over.